I'm Dan Mulhall and I'm the Irish ambassador to the UK.
Dan, a pleasure. A real warm welcome here to Bradford. And this is your first time in Bradford?
My first time in Bradford, and I'm most impressed, especially by the wonderful building we're in at the moment, the City Hall. It's fantastic. It's really extraordinary building and a great tribute to the history of this city and this region, that it had the ambition and the imagination to produce a building of this quality.
And the wealth, of course.
And the wealth, yes, that was important also, I suppose. Yes, these kind of buildings don't come cheap.
Now, I imagine you spend quite a bit of your time visiting the Irish communities around the country.
I do, yes, and I'm very proud of our community here. We have about 600,000 Irish people living in Britain, and they make a huge contribution to this society, to this community, in every walk of life. And many of the Irish have been here a very long time. I meet Irish people who've been here 40, 50, even 60 years. And I also meet Irish people who just recently over. So the good thing is that our relations now are on a friendly level, and we can cooperate together, and we can commemorate the history. A divisive history in some ways, but we now can look back on it and see things that maybe we missed before, and see the things that bring us together rather than those things that divide us.
And of course, this year, the 100-year anniversary of the Easter Rising, must have been a very busy time for you.
Oh, it is, yes. I mean, I was in Liverpool during the week. I gave a talk in London yesterday. I'll be in Lancashire next week and so forth. So, yes, what we're trying to do is, I believe that the people of Ireland over the last 10 years have made a big effort to understand the importance for Britain of the First World War and the commemoration of that. And we've taken a full part in commemorating the First World War. And many Irish people now, most Irish people now recognise that war was a war that involved the Irish as well as the British. And I think this year is an opportunity really to explain to people here in Britain a little bit about the significance of the Easter Rising, not just for Ireland, but also for Britain. Because, of course, it brought about a major political change in this country, and it started a new set of relationships between our two islands, which now, 100 years later, are on a very, very positive basis.
And then we're about to have what I imagine is going to be a very interesting lecture by Brian Hanley.
Yes, and one of the things about this centenary is that it's allowed people in Ireland and around the world to maybe understand things about the Easter Rising that weren't apparent, say, 10, 15, 20, 50 years ago. And one of the things that we have been made aware of this year is, first of all, the role of women. There actually were a lot of women involved in the Rising, which seems surprising now that 100 years ago women would have gone out and taken part in an uprising, in a rebellion, but they did. The second thing we've discovered is that so many people from different parts of England, from the Irish community, went across to Ireland to take part in the Rising. So it was not a simple question of us and them. There were lots of different complexities. And for example, another thing we're doing this year is we're remembering the Battle of the Somme. Because while we had the Rising in Dublin in April, in July, tens of thousands of Irish men fought on the Somme, and many of them never came back, lost their lives there. There are many people, Irish nationalists, who joined the British Army because they saw that as the right thing to do, who died, lost their lives on the Western Front during the First World War. But that doesn't stop those people from having been Irish. They were definitely Irish. They were 100% Irish. They were Irish nationalists, but they had a different view of how to manage the relationship between our two countries. And the great thing is that 100 years later, we have found the solution. And the solution is to respect each other, to recognize that we're different, but to appreciate the difference, to enjoy the differences rather than be threatened by them.
I think that's a really important point. And again, that makes us all remember that there are many versions of history, aren't there?
There are. And this year in Ireland, 50 years ago, I remember when anybody said anything negative about the Easter Rising, there'd be horror, there'd be controversy, there'd be really heated exchanges. Now in Ireland, you can say whatever you like. People are open to different points of view. We don't have a single view of history anymore. That's a very good thing, because it means that as a country, as a society, we've matured. We now recognize that history is not made up of black and white. It's made up of different colors and different shades. And we're now appreciating those different shades, because what makes the past so fascinating is the fact that it's not a simple story of right and wrong or black and white. It's a story of complexity. It's a story of hidden things that we didn't know before, which we're now discovering again because so many people now have access, and we have put a lot of material in the last few years onto the internet so that anybody can look up and can access the history of that period. You don't have to be a scholar anymore. You don't have to go to the National Library. So what we're doing now is we're understanding that ordinary people, this year, for example, one of the big things that's happened is that we've been focusing on some of the civilians who died during the Easter Rising, some of the children who died. We've been trying to remember their stories. So it's been a wonderful experience for the Irish people, both in Ireland and abroad, including here in Bradford, to actually look back at our past, understand the importance of those events 100 years ago, but to understand also that we need to work hard to understand those events because they're not simple. They're not simple. They are complex events that we need to work hard at to understand. A bit like the First World War centenary has encouraged people to look again at the First World War to see those stories that were maybe hidden from view. Absolutely. It wasn't all the generals. They were the foot soldiers who never before appeared in history. Now they can because we have access to material that wasn't available in the past. Now,
I'm just going to ask you to give a little greeting to people in Bradford in Irish.
In Irish, okay. Gawn buchas le muintir Bradford as ochtan fáiltiú chur si roim anocht agus tásúla gom gan aróig le Bradford in sna blianta tá roing.
Now, Dan, I'm attending an Irish language workshop tomorrow for the very first time, so I expect to be able to return that compliment to you.
Well, next time we meet, I expect you to be fluent in Irish, okay? And I'll give you a little gold pin to show you're an Irish speaker, okay?
Dan, thank you so much.
You're very, very welcome.
And enjoy the rest of your time here in Bradford. And that's Dan Van Holland, the Irish ambassador to England, who's joining us here in Bradford for the reception. And with that, I hand back to you in the studio, Lorna.
Hey, that was... All right, I can tell you. What's your name?
Mary Dowson.
Mary Dowson.
Mary's the chairman of BCB local radio.
D-O-W-S-O-N, is it?
D-O-W-S-O-N, yes. But my mum was...
No, because I have to tweet the photograph of you, see. Yeah.
My nana was Irish.
Nana was Irish. Anyway, as we say, Berbua August Banos.
I'm sure you do. Thank you.